Baru negara.
Kwani unaongopa nini?
Baru jauh.
Mara nyeto neme udah gila juga kayaknya. Oh, nena nangka hebat.
Huyu amelala na njaa. Ma, erajo, dara egai dara ranyo lomon, negejiro na kayu oltung'ani ro, ekiyiolo amu esiai esumash, amu itanyamalta ndo. Didai. Didai. Ndetia. Masaa yangu ndetia. Shida. Sabu. Kubwa sana shida.
Jina yangu naitwa Norparaku Ndondo Msaka. Unaomba serikali sisi waloserian anakufa kwa sababu ya njaa. Hii ngoko mnakaa hapa ameshinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Huyo mzee anashinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Utangojea hiyo mzee mwingine watu wamekufa kabisa. Kabisa. Ara watoto ya shule iko moja hajaenda shuleni kwa sababu ya njaa. Unaona watoto wako asubuhi anaamka ameshinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Watoto wako nyumbani kwa sababu ya njaa. Hakuna mtu anakubali mtoto wake anaenda na njaa. Naomba serikali tusaidie sisi.
Ya ng'ombe.
Ng'ombe ameisha kabisa. Kabisa. Mbuzi ameisha. Sisi hakuna kitu kingine anategemea.
Kwa kanyazi na
Iralo.
Hai rangenda itu lagi. Dikira ini ramu jangan arsenal mar ay bang ngamne ye. Baik ye.
jangan haji. Ya, jangan haji. Harus lihat ni. Yang itu semua ni dunia berdua. Itu dia kamu.
India ni kara ya wah.
Eu?
Wale mandam.
Hii mambo ya jai inawapeleka namna gani?
Hii njaa inatupeleka kwa mbio sana. Sasa ng'ombe, unapoona hii ng'ombe yangu, sasa hii ng'ombe mwenyewe sasa tumeshindwa hata kulisha. Watoto ndio hawa wameshindwa kwenda shule kwa sababu sasa ukipeleka ng'ombe pale sokoni inanunuliwa ng'ombe kwa shilingi 1,000. Sasa unaona sasa dunia sasa imeenda ba. Sasa sio ng'ombe ndio sisi nalilia sana. Tunalia serikali iangalie watu sababu inabaki siku chache. Ama hiyo mwezi mwingine ijayo utakuta watu wameanza kufendi, especially kama watoto kama hawa wadogo wao hawana namna nyingine isipokuwa wanategemea hii kitu inaitwa ng'ombe. Naomba sasa samana yake imeisha. Sasa watu wameshindwa kwenda dukani kwa sababu hii shilingi 1,000 kwa familia nzima hawezi kulala kama saa 5 ama saa 6 ya mchana. Kesho tena ng'ombe 800 mpaka 500 ng'ombe. Sasa hiyo 500 ukipeleka dukani na familia nzima ya watu 20 ama 10 Sasa itakuwa ni ng'ombe tunashughulikia ama watoto, ni watoto. Basi kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali ituangalie sana, especially watu ambao wameumia sana. Hakuna chakula Kenya, gharama ndio hiyo imepanda, unga ni shilingi 200 na vitu mingi ambayo tumeona shida, especially wasee kama sisi tumeona shida kubwa kwa njaa. Haijawahi tangu sisi tusalie wasee wetu Kitoi, hatujawahi kuona kiangazi kama hii. Labda ni ile ya 1959 mpaka 60, wakati tulipata ile unga ambayo ililetwa na Amerika. Wakati hiyo tulikuwa sisi watoto wadogo kama huyu mtoto wangu. Lakini hizi miaka ingine yote kama miaka 50 ijayo hatujawahi kuona ni kama ile.
And that's how I've been thrown on air. I was waiting for the bumper. You know, it usually sets the mood going, the music that plays there. And no, you usually do a good job in those orchestras. Welcome to the evening drive with me, Jackie Mo. I hope you've had a lovely day. Man, the sun in Kajiado County. We are baking. I don't even know what to say. Sijui kama we'll start wearing the deras za Mombasa. Like
Sijui tutavaa nini, kanzu?
Kwa sababu tunachomeka.
It's hot. It's very hot.
Karibu sana to the evening drive.
Asante sana. Mmeniweka ofisi siku mzima leo. Very nice, but it's sad. It's a sad state out there, talking to farmers. In fact, I was talking to farmers of lunch hour, and it's a sad state. And it's even word karibu zimesada. It's even worse because there's no food. There's no food both for animals. Our food has become very expensive. People are still debating whether whether fertilizer is the cause of food. I still believe not. Lakini niko fiti.
Good to see you. Good to
Yep,
see you.
yep.
It's been long, man. Hata hizo microphone najua zinashtuka hii sauti.
Zinashanganiaje? Naona tuko na shake kumbe na
Form ni gani?
Form mama form. Wacha tuangalie it's if you have land, ni kamera gani ile? Yes. If you have land and you can grow and you have water, please go and grow crops. Unasikianga there's money in farming. This time there'll be money in farming.
They start growing now.
Yes. If you have water.
Coming from Noah, take it
yes.
seriously. Noah ameshaona pale mbele.
Kesho niko shambani. Kesho. If you have land and you have water and you can afford to buy seeds, improved seeds, start doing that.
This is the time to do it.
Yep.
And today we want to talk about mitigating effects of climate in agriculture. We've had a very interesting week all the way from last week. We've been talking about matters to do with food security, matters to do with our own foods, our changing taste buds. Like, we are now having to change even the kind of food that we eat because most of the foods are either expensive or are hard to find.
You know, it's not even about that. I was talking to our local chief, area chief, senior chief, and he was saying that he has lost 62 cows.
Wow.
62 cows, and each of the cows would be an average of 50,000 shillings each.
That's close to, it's almost 400K.
Yes. And apart from that, we're looking at, don't even look at the, you see, most of them, assuming 50% of those cows were female.
Yeah.
Meaning?
They would have been double.
Exactly. Yes. And it's very serious because they don't know what to do. In fact, he was telling me that they are trying to feed those cows, but those cows there's no reaction. There's no, I have a few neighbors who are neighboring my farm. And now even giving them water is not a favor. No. It is a must. You have to.
Wow.
It's crazy.
The situation is dire.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing some other parts of the country it's raining.
Yes, it is raining, but again, it is not the regular rains, meaning that rain can come when you've not planned to plant or you have not yet harvested. So that means that the crops that you have on the farm will take a bit longer. And if you are not prepared, then it's waste of waste of water. You'll grow grass.
Some people are eating grass. There's a video we had today morning, and the guys in Teso eat grass as a vegetable.
Yes, but you know, at the end of the day, you look at majority. If it rained in Kajiado, it would be a different story.
Yes, true.
Yep.
But last week we had the Mashujaa Day, and
Yes.
I tried to get you to come and do it. No, I know you're a Shujaa. 15 years. Is it 15 now?
50, 60 going to
16.
16.
It's now going to 16.
Yes.
You're a Shujaa in farming, and here you are telling farmers. Most people are leaving farming because the climate is crazy. And here you are telling them, plant.
In my boot, I have seeds. Tomorrow, I'm on the farm. Tomorrow, I'm on the farm for the next 3 days.
What?
Yes.
Planting. Yeah.
Planting,
So
yes.
You want to make serious money.
Yes. In fact, after the break, I will give an offer. Yes.
Yes. So, being that Shujaa farmer, what advice can you tell farmers as a way of mitigating these effects of climate change? You had the interview with Dr. Cynthia.
Yes.
And she was talking about drawing and doing some things in the computer, planting from the computer. What insights can you share with farmers as we go into the COP27 and people are all talking about climate?
You know, it's a very thin line between success of a farmer making money and climate change or climate resilience.
Yes.
All these are foreign terms that mean the same thing. When I say it means the same thing, it means that if you are, very few farmers will understand what climate change is. So even if we go back and tell them about climate smart agriculture, they don't understand. Yeah. But it's the same things they do: testing your soil, making sure you maintain soil health, making sure that you have the most efficient way of harvesting rainwater. But Kajiado, you harvest dust. And then, but the little rain that rains, if you can be able to harvest, it can push you for some time. Yes. The other thing is that you have to adopt the most effective irrigation method. You cannot chance. There is no more time for sprinkler. There is, unless you're sprinkling on grass, there is no more time for furrow irrigation unless you have a lot of water. You know, so that is the challenge that is there. So you have to make sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time as fast as possible.
Is there ever going to be a right time going forward with this
yes
weather patterns?
Yes. So now one of the things that farmers have to understand is that now they have to start looking at what are the options out there. And these options would be, because very few farmers would buy seeds after looking at the weather forecast for the next 2 months. In fact, very few farmers today looked at the weather. They just say it's hot. Mwagilia maji. You know? Yeah. And also adopting to start like IoT, you know, agri-tech solutions. For example, you measure moisture content, so that in case it is too hot, then you have an automated irrigation method that now opens water directly, because you cannot have people on the farm throughout. It gets really hot as well. Having crops that can help you, especially from a subsistence point of view. By the way, when I say farming, start farming for your own self first, because where it is going, food will be very expensive. I was looking at spinach. 2 leaves of spinach is 10 shillings. 2 leaves.
So what if it's 5 shillings?
Yes. It has never happened that way. We normally sell even a bunch, 1 whole kilo at 20 shillings, sometimes 30 shillings. So when I tell farmers to go back and farm, number one is because you have to feed yourself first. You know, I've seen farmers, even myself sometimes, I end up buying vegetables. Kina mama wanasema kuja na mboga. You know, so we've ended up buying, you know, and it's something that you can probably do it differently, you know. Yeah. So that's when I say, and you have, as a farmer, you have to be resilient.
Resilience, I see no. I see no resilience. Are there, like, most of the people at, what's your take on the passing of the GMO? Do you think the GMO seeds will help increase food production?
Yes, definitely. They will increase. The only thing is, and that is what I always advise anybody dealing with farmers, make sure the education behind it is done right. Because even today, if you bring the best fertilizer and tell farmers this is the best fertilizer, and they don't have an education behind it, it will still not hit them properly, you know. And I mean, I have a bone to pick with the people who are against the GMO, because they never came out to give us an alternative. You know, when this came out, what I say is that there is definitely need for proper education and training. Unfortunately, in the country, in Kenya, agriculture has been devolved. So we are the mercy of the county governments. You know, we are the mercy of county governments. They have not, they don't probably have enough resources or budgets to be able to make sure extension services is working, because that would have been something that would have been discussed, you know, and discussed with the point of view of the need of what this is about. But not just that, there's a lot of misinformation about. We hear that, I heard one of the activists saying that, you know, when you plant GMO seeds, then you grow six fingers. I mean, there's no link between that. I mean, yeah, for those who are against,
to come and debate with
yes, you know, let us not misinform people for the sake of opposing something. You know, hata kama una tune msichana usidanganye sana, sema tu ukweli. You know, and it's very important for people to understand what GMO is, what gene editing. And you know, there's something that I really wonder when people oppose it. We still have some breeds. For example, I mean, I'm not against anybody doing broiler chicken, but from where I come from, chicken is chicken. Chicken takes 6 months, 7 months to get ready, you know, for a proper meal. But we have this scenario where it takes 6 weeks and it's ready for the market.
Would you eat that?
I'm not a fan of chicken, though. Yeah, it's broiler chicken. Everybody eats it. But yeah. So when it comes to the GMO, I think what is important, and myself being a brand ambassador for Alliance for Science, it is the education. Education behind it. Why are we doing this? What are the solutions? But again, it's not just about the seed. You know, for me, we were having a discussion in the morning, an online discussion, and I said it's not just about fertilizer. It's not just about seed. You know, you have to have the right seed, right soil, right growing conditions, enough irrigation systems, proper agronomic support, transport to the market, and then the market. But even if you bring good seed and fertilizer and the soil is wrong, zero. And that's why it's not a quick fix. I mean, our president talked about that he needs at least 1 year to make sure the unga prices go down. Definitely. And that is one of the, that's a very bold statement. Because we're coming from a campaign period where expectations of majority of Kenyans was price of unga, price of food will go down. You cannot fix it in a day. You cannot fix it with fertilizer only.
But in the campaigns, he gave us 100 days. Now it's 1 year.
Until reality hits, you know. But also, there's also a quick fix. There's also a quick fix and say, yes, now we're going to do this. But probably we want to do something for a long term. Yes.
And I don't know if you got time to check the interview I had with Kylie Poorman.
Yes.
And he said, in his own words, he said GMOs are a short-term solution. And countries need to look for long-term solutions. And he was talking about having other crops. It also came out from your interview with Cynthia, where she said in some place in Zambia there is a crop they're growing, intercropping it with other crops.
Yes, and that's why and that's why it's simply regenerative agriculture, where you actually grow a crop to be a, you know, like for example, you can grow maize. The way we used to grow maize and beans, because beans was nitrogen fixer. And it was also like a cover crop. So even if there's a lot of sunlight, what happens is the water that is in the soil doesn't evaporate as fast because it goes now into the. So we have to go back to the basics. It's actually going back to the basics, reducing over tillage. We are always tilling our land. There's always a tractor on the farm, you know. And we're also coming from a scenario where we don't have proper information on what nutrients are available in my soil. So if I don't have that, it's like going to the hospital. You're not tested anything. You're just put in the ward, then in the theater. They don't know your blood group. They don't know your rhesus factor. They don't know the white blood count, red blood count. You know. So that way, even if this is the most, the best surgeon, he will miss it.
Very true.
Yeah.
Hey, you just explained it
nimekaa bila kuingia kwa studio.
I know you're in a rush, but COP27 is almost coming. And,
Yes.
we had the World Food Prize, and we've been having a lot of talks to do with agriculture. What's your take on these talks? Like, we were just discussing, and you're saying Africans might not attend the COP27. We don't need to discuss in the morning show.
That is
But
tomorrow.
what impact do these talks really have? Like, even the World Food Prize. At least I saw something in the World Food Prize. People got deals, struck agreements. There's the peace laureate, not peace, the food laureate.
Yes,
who-
yes.
who
Cynthia,
got
Dr. Cynthia.
something, and
Yes.
at least we got a chance to interact with them and
Yes.
we got to understand. But do these talks have any impact on smallholder farmers?
Now you have to put smallholder farmers on the shelf first. When you talk about yes and no. Yes, if at all they're implemented at national or county government level, yes, it is. If it is proper management of the resources available, yes, it is. Because again, all these discussions have to be disseminated to the smallholder farmers. Very few smallholder farmers understand what is COP27. Jackie, what is COP27?
It's climate.
And there was an article I was reading today in the morning, and it was actually saying if we don't invest in smallholder farmers, food crisis will continue. And we will feel the ripple effect, and it will be so bad. So bad because those smallholder farmers will not be able to feed themselves. So you can imagine a scenario where even subsistence level has dropped. It means going to the national part, going to selling that crop will fail. And you can imagine, Kenya is a good importer of tea, coffee, and the rest. But if these farmers cannot feed themselves, they cannot go to the farm to grow these things for export. Meaning, our foreign exchange going down. It means people cannot be able to eat. I think, I'm not sure, but probably 40% or more of the money that people earn goes into food. So you can imagine, if you cannot be able to eat food, you cannot go to work. And that means also things like diseases, ailments, malnutrition, stuff like that. And some of these things are, allow me to say this, but they have worse effects than GMO, if you were to talk about it that way, And in a scenario where, and that's why I still go back and say, the GMO discussion is not about the dangers of GMO. It's demystifying what GMO is about. It is actually disseminating the information and breaking the misinformation that is out there. Because, if you tell someone that if you take GMO seed and plant, people who eat will have 6 fingers. It's not true. It's not fair. You're not being fair to these farmers.
They need to, okay, let me not take sides.
Yes, and then the other thing is that if you tell people, when you get this seed, you cannot reproduce your seed, you cannot do this.
But it's true, you cannot reproduce.
Who has said that?
Okay.
The other thing is that, and then we are for example, if you tell people, if you take we all are born, we get vaccinated. Whoever questions those vaccinations?
Because we don't know if they're GMOs, we just know it's medication.
No, I'm not saying they're GMO, but who questions them?
Can you question
Those who
doctor?
question them, what do they do?
Can you question a doctor?
We have to be sensitive, yes, we have to be very careful, but science will prove a lot. Because science is a matter of, it's not observing. It is actually observing, getting in there, understanding, refining, thinking through, testing, and coming out, So I'm not saying that we do not need to probably preserve our seeds. If we can, that's fine. In fact, even indigenous farming, indigenous seed production is science.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you want to do it commercially, if we want to feed the world, it has to be a different discussion. Yes.
Wait, okay, Sawa. We understand you've been away from the microphone. And once we open the microphone for you, you can talk for 3 hours. No, you had a very great interview with Cynthia Rosenway.
Yes.
I hope I pronounced it well. Tell us about the interview and who is Cynthia?
I think the interview was brilliant, and when I say it was brilliant is because it gave it we got the context with which she's working, which I think we will be playing later. But apart from that is that she is very passionate about smallholder farmers from a very practical perspective. In fact, I remember when we were reserving the interview, she had a very tight engagement. But she created time because she knew that she's going to talk to smallholder farmers. She's going to talk about what they are doing. And in fact, we have started discussion, probably how we can be able to partner together with them so that some of these solutions that are already out there that are being tested can now be tested here. Because we know that Africa is more of a research continent.
They say we have some genes that are resilient. Should I say resilient or resistant?
Yeah. So again, I liked what she mentioned about the COVID vaccine. Sorry, not COVID. About GMO. It is not that people are opposed to, and I think that is what has to come out very clear. It's not that people are opposed to. It is just that the information has not been relayed in the right way. And that is what we're hoping that probably with the engagement with Alliance for Science, we can be able to help demystify some of these things. I know they're having, there's a discussion going on right now where Dr. Sheila Chubuju is actually part of it. And it is a very interesting discussion. It's a very simpler way of asking, when you talk about something, when it is a solution, do you only focus on the negative? Or do you also talk about the positives? Do the positives supersede the negatives? And these negatives, are they really negatives?
So, Ambassador, I will not question you on that. I know you're rushing. There's a campaign that a farmers media is partnering with UK Tech Hub on logistics.
Yes.
In transport logistics.
Yes.
I'll
talk
give
about
you 1 minute.
after the break. After the break. Let's go for a break.
Want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'll talk about it after the break.
After the break. Okay, so I'll give you the opportunity because you interviewed the laureate World Prize, Dr. Cynthia Rosenway. So you introduce the interview.
We'll do it after the break.
Okay, so he has insisted on a break. I cannot talk much, so we'll just play one of our feelers. Probably let's redo the videos that we had shown you on how the people in Kajiado County are starving and are appealing for the government to help them in this ongoing crisis and drought in Kajiado.
Mara nyeto ile meure kila yo kabina. Oh, nena nanga hembai.
Amelala na njaa. Ma, erajua, dara egai dara ranya lomon, negejito na kayieu oltung'ani iro, ikiyiolou amu esiai esumash, amu itanyamalta ndo. Sidai. Ntetia. Masaa yangu ntetia. Shida. Saru. Kubwa sana shida.
Jina yangu naitwa Norparaku Ndondo Msaka. Unaomba serikali, sisi waloserian anakufa kwa sababu ya njaa. Hii ngoko mnakaa hapa ameshinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Huyo mzee anashinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Utangojea hiyo mzee ingine watu wamekufa kabisa. Ara watoto ya shule iko moja hajaenda shuleni kwa sababu ya njaa. Unaona watoto wako asubuhi anaamuka ameshinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Watoto wote wako nyumbani kwa sababu ya njaa. Hakuna mtu anakubali mtoto wake anaenda na njaa. Naomba serikali tusaidie sisi. Ng'ombe ameisha kabisa. Kabisa. Mbuzi ameisha. Sisi hakuna kitu kingine anategemea.
Kwa kanyazi na kwa
Hai ra ngai ru ngi. Ikirai na ra mon jan arsanan mar ai bang ngam nei ye. Ndani kara ya wa.
wale mandam.
Hii mambo ya jai inawapeleka namna gani?
Hii njaa inatupeleka kwa mbio sana. Sasa ng'ombe, unapoona hii ng'ombe yangu, sasa hii ng'ombe mwenyewe sasa tumeshindwa hata kulisha. Watoto ndio hawa wameshindwa kwenda shule kwa sababu sasa ukipeleka ng'ombe pale sokoni inanunuliwa ng'ombe kwa shilingi 1,000. Sasa unaona sasa dunia sasa imeenda bwana. Sasa sio ng'ombe ndio sisi nalilia sana. Tunalia serikali iangalie watu, sababu inabaki siku chache ama hiyo mwezi mwingine ijayo utakuta watu wameanza kufendi, especially kama watoto kama hawa wadogo wao hawana namna nyingine isipokuwa wanategemea hii kitu inaitwa ng'ombe. Naomba sasa thamani yake imeisha. Sasa watu wameshindwa kwenda dukani kwa sababu hii shilingi 1,000 kwa familia nzima hawezi kula kama saa 5 ama saa 6 ya mchana. Kesho tena ng'ombe 800 mpaka 500 ng'ombe. Sasa hiyo 500 ukipeleka dukani na familia nzima ya watu 20 ama 10. Sasa itakuwa ni ng'ombe tunashughulikia ama watoto? Ni watoto. Basi tunaomba serikali ituangalie sana, especially watu ambao wameumia sana. Hakuna chakula Kenya, gharama ndio hiyo imepanda, unga ni shilingi 200 na vitu mingi ambayo tunaona shida, especially wasee kama sisi. Tunaona shida kubwa kwa njaa. Haijawahi tangu sisi tusaliwe wasee wetu walikutoi. Hatujawahi kuona kiangazi kama hii. Labda ni ile ya 1959 mpaka 60 wakati tulipata ile unga ambayo ililetwa na Amerika. Wakati hiyo tulikuwa sisi watoto wadogo kama huyu mtoto wangu. Lakini hizi miaka ingine yote kama miaka 50 ijayo hatujawahi kuona ni kama ile.
And welcome back to the Evening Farm Drive with me, Jackie Mo, and I'm joined by one Shujaa Agriculture. Unatoanga wapi hiyo nguvu ya hiyo kazi unafanya?
Mimi kula nini? Muhogo.
Vitu zenye ni resilient. Okay. We need to take a short break. Probably I'll ask our director to play one bumper. And then we'll be back in a short while.
Yep.
Just play a bumper. But even as a director fixes that problem, you were talking about the transport and logistics campaign.
No, actually, before that, I just want to see the video. There's a video that has just been played. The video about there's a lady who's talking there, and I wanted us just look at that video. That is already out there.
This one? No, the other one.
Yes, the other one, yes.
The first one?
Yes.
The first one?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, that one. Just play that as we discuss a few. What is this situation? Because we don't know what this situation is. Yes.
Let's take a look.
Mara nyeto ile meure kila yo kakina. Oh, nena nanga hembai.
Huyu amelala na njaa. Ma, erajo, dara egai dara ranya lomon, negejito naa kayieu oltung'ani iro, ikiyiolou amu esiai esumash, amu itanyamalta iltung'anak.
Shida sapuk kubwa sana shida.
Jina yangu naitwa Norparaku Ndondo Msaka. Unaomba serikali, sisi Waloserian anakufa kwa sababu ya njaa. Hii ngoko mnakaa hapa ameshinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Huyo mzee anashinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Utangojea hiyo mzee ingine watu wamekufa kabisa. Kabisa. Ara watoto ya shule iko moja hajaenda shuleni kwa sababu ya njaa. Unaona watoto wako asubuhi anaamka ameshinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Watoto wako nyumbani kwa sababu ya njaa. Hakuna mtu anakubali mtoto wake anaenda na njaa. Naomba serikali tusaidie sisi. Ng'ombe ameisha kabisa. Kabisa. Mbuzi ameisha. Sisi hakuna
And welcome back to the third and final
Hey.
section of the evening farm drill. We're not compared to that 2 for 2.
Where?
Just like that.
Today you cannot say, wait, give me a minute. All right.
So we are talking about from relief to resilience,
Yes.
and you've seen these pictures. It's quite a sad situation. Even if tunacheka kwa huzuni.
You know, why I was saying we replay that is because we don't know what the situation is. And we don't know because everybody's going through the same experience. You know, long time we would see that and it would be like, wow. But now everybody, the whole world is going through a challenge. But now the whole world is, and the challenge is eating. But the challenge is not even water, it is food. Now you don't have food, there's no water. Apart from that, there's no money to buy that food, even if you get it. But at the same time, the amount of food that is still being wasted,
It's a lot.
30% of food is being wasted. You know, and as you've mentioned, yes, there's this campaign that we're about to pilot. It is actually affordable transport and logistics services in partnership with UK Tech Hub, Little Cabs, Nature's Best, and definitely a Farmers Media coming in to tell us this story, and other organizations that we will be reaching out to see how this is part. We've just started discussing with somebody who, an organization that actually assembles vehicles, and to see whether they can be able to support us in this campaign. What we are trying to achieve is to identify what is the role and of transport and logistics services in making food a bit more accessible. So, you know, when food is more accessible, it becomes cheaper. Yeah, and of benefit to farmers directly. We are not saying that we are here to eliminate the middleman. I know tomorrow you are dealing with them. You'll be dealing with them tomorrow morning in the survey.
That sector.
Yeah.
But, I'll become an aggregator. It's more learned.
Aggregator is just an English term. Aggregator is just another word of a broker. Ni kama kusema Q-Tex na nail polish. Yeah.
So, how will the project look like?
So we will be sending out. I think we have started sending out. That is now, I think, Fiona's docket. We've been started sending out questionnaires and forms for farmers to be able to fill in case they need to access affordable transport. Yes, they will tell us a bit of their stories, and then how they've been doing it, how they've been accessing the farm. We will try and see how many of those stories we can be able to capture as well. And then we are also on the other side talking to two ends, that is the buyers, some buyers who are willing to get produce but deliver to them. You know, there are some buyers who cannot come to the farm. And we have seen that mostly with the supermarket chains, with the mama bogas. I think those are supplier also who are player in the industry, who has also had mastered that, delivering directly to the mama bogas. And again, and then the other side, we're also talking to transporters. And I know tomorrow you'll be dealing with some of them tomorrow. We wish you all the best.
Just prepared.
Yes, because we have to talk to all the stakeholders. We have talked to farmers for far too long. We've talked to them about how to be the best in tomato production and all that. And then I remember, the time I guided a farmer how to be successful in onions. And they said that they watched that famous video. So I guided them. After 3.5 months, the farmer calls me and tells me, otherwise, you know, that's a very hard question to answer. And then I said, tuko salama. Then he said, I have 18 tons of onions. Where do I take them?
Kuisha.
Now I wondered, okay.
Okay, so you got into onion farming and you didn't know.
Yes, because it sounded nice. Yes. But now his biggest challenge is that people want onions in Ruaka, but he does not have transport. So that is what we're trying to think through. Testing a few models. We hope within the next 6 to 8 months we'll be able to come up with a solution that is definitely affordable.
Very interesting.
Yes.
I'm just waiting to see the findings, because transport, you'll find transport, but affordable.
Well, there are very many aspects that we are also going to consider. For example, when you see like the modern taxi, should I say, the way probably cabs are doing that. A cab doesn't drop you and go back empty. So we want to see how we can be able to work with some of these partners, some of the transporters, so that there's a return cargo that is more affordable. Then also we are looking at how farmers can be able to come together and how can I say it, to be able to consolidate their produce. For example, if I'm going to City Park Market and we have 4 farmers, we don't need to use 4 different vehicles. We can just use one. Probably when you're coming from City Park Market, probably we have the truck can be able to carry some produce or whatever it is, things like apples, oranges, the normal sold at High Ridge, probably can come down the sides as they give us. So that way you find that you use the same fuel to and fro, but you have lessened the burden. Yes.
But in the long run, I'm seeing a situation where the people will still need the aggregators, because the aggregators know their way around like the map they usually follow when they're collecting. Or probably you'll have the farmers get a collection center where they.
No, you see, this is the thing. We do not want to eliminate, and the campaign is not to eliminate the brokers, the aggregators. We just want farmers to be well informed. Because, for example, if me as a farmer, I have to sell because I don't have an affordable transport solution, then I will have to end up selling to the aggregator who comes to the farm. But if I can be able to take this produce, for example, from Mashuru to Nairobi, a distance of 117 kilometers, is 30,000 shillings. If the farmer can be able to bring it to Kitengela, he's cut that cost by close to 15,000 shillings, because now from Kitengela to the market is, so we are not saying, and we're also not saying that transport is the only challenge. We're also adding the logistics bit, so things like storage, warehousing, probably cooling facilities, which we are in, I can say second, third layer of discussion with the 2 county governments. Mombasa will be doing that next week. Kajiado, we've started the discussion, so we are hoping that we can be able to get this solution.
This is a very big project, and
yes,
probably there are people who are watching us now and they're wondering, can they take part in it?
Yes.
Which counties are you focusing on?
So we are, I received a call today and somebody almost cried and said, no, I am in between the counties that you are focusing on. So at the moment we're doing Nairobi, the metropolitan, so that is Machakos, Kajiado counties. We are also working with Kisumu County. We are doing Mombasa County, Embu, and parts of on the way. Yes.
Yes. Those ones.
So basically what we're looking at source of produce and market. You see, there's a lot of produce coming from in and around the Nairobi metropolitan, and Nairobi is a big market. On the way, for example, from Kisumu, Nairobi is still a consumer of a lot of fish. But on the way to Kisumu also, there's also a lot of market for fresh green vegetables. Mombasa takes everything, but also gives us some things back in, yes.
Yeah, especially seafood.
Yes.
I wanted to go to...
Bana kuna siku nilikula seafood. Unajua seafood nini? Nilianza kujikula lobster. Scorpion.
No, it's not a scorpion.
See, scorpion.
Hii inakonga wameka kwa glass ukiingia coast hapo kwa ferry. Inakonga kwa glass.
Not scorpion, by the way. Yeah, it's called what?
I'll remember
that one. Nasikia iko na nini? Nguvu.
Iko na nguvu nyingi.
Ile nasikia inapigwa kwa mawe nje iko soft. Nguvu kwa mingi.
Acha na hiyo. Kama nilikuwa naambiwa nikufanya. Nilikuwa na nibeg, please taste, it is very nice. No, I'm not
bana.
Yeah. So that's a project that Farmers Media is going all out. You'll be seeing us in many of your markets, and we'll be interacting with you. Kindly share with us all the information that we need to make these projects a success. As you come to a conclusion.
Yes. Interesting, very, very, very interesting times. We can say that it might not be easy to do farming, especially now. Water is a big challenge. But again, I said I'm going to have an offer. So do I say it now? Ama nifanya kesho?
Fanya saa hivi. Ndio nimekurudisha kwa studio.
Yeah, so we'll be giving out 3 acres to 6 different people. That is half an acre each. Free water, free soil. You just need to come and do the work right.
Can people from a farmers take part?
No. Sasa unaweza pewaje zawadi?
What do they need to do?
So we will be sending details. Comment in this. Just put your comments in the comment section and tell us what you'd like to grow on half an acre if you're given all the resources.
Nice. People start commenting and texting.
Yep.
You're being given half an acre for free.
Yes.
With water. And there's no food right now in Kenya. Ningekuwa nimeshatuma message na sema napanda sukuma na spinach bas.
One touch haraka hapo. And then we'll also
aliniambia kunde iko na pesa in 21 days you're making money.
Yes.
I've given you clues.
Yes. So surprise us so that you get surprised.
In the comments. So
yes.
How you have the honors of introducing your one and good
yes
interview.
Yes, so I was able to have an interview with Cynthia Rosenway, who was the World Food Prize laureate. A lot of insights on smallholder farmers, the project that they're running. I want to warn you that the interview was brilliant, and she had very good insights as well. But most importantly, her and her organization and the research she's doing, she's more than willing to make sure that these findings are actually practiced here in Kenya. Yes.
Before even we play that video, I just had a sneak preview of it, and she was talking about how she does her farming in a computer. I don't know if they draw
yes, so
like that science. How can someone
karibu uniulize na kikisi. Umefanya leza kaki. Ngoja. Yes.
Science, what pushes someone to go all to that extent, yani?
Watch that interview.
Say no more.
So presenting Cynthia Rosenway, the World Food Prize laureate.
Because we would like to showcase this just to the community of smallholder farmers for the work that Cynthia is doing, and yes.
Okay, I'll turn my camera off so they don't have to look at me. It's good you're going to be there, Emily.
Yes, so now I will do it this way. Let me, for the purposes of this, so I will okay, I think we will have it that way. Let me just put my questions up. We just realized we had quite a number of challenges today. The power company was doing some changes and they did not inform us on time. So we just realized we didn't have power at the time we really needed it to have. Okay, good. So probably we can start off by you just telling us, who is Cynthia?
I'm Cynthia Rosenzweig. I have a PhD in agronomy, and I am the leader of the Climate Impacts Group at NASA Goddard Institute for Space Studies. So I'm I would say simultaneously a space farmer with using the NASA tools of remote sensing and global climate models, but then through our network, AgMIP, which stands for Agricultural Model Intercomparison and Improvement Project, we are right on the ground in developing countries, many countries in Africa and other continents, working together with teams in country to address the challenges of climate change.
Brilliant. I will just ask this question, and allow me to ask this question is, why agriculture?
Oh, for me, why agriculture?
Yes.
Yes. How did I get to be right there, on the farm?
Yes.
When I was very young, my husband and I went from the United States to live in Italy, in the country. And we had a farm there. And all the people in our farming district taught us how to be farmers. And I fell in love with agriculture way back then in Italy. And then when we came back to the United States, we had a farm in upstate New York in the Hudson Valley. We raised cattle, we raised corn, we raised, or you would say maize, right? Maize. We raised pigs, we raised vegetables, cucumbers, and sold them at markets in the New York area. So I've been a farmer on the ground, really. Then I went and said, I love this. I'm going to go get my PhD in agronomy. And then I started modeling crops and climate change in the computer with what we call crop models. And now I grow all the crops in the computer with many researchers all around the world to help project what climate change means for agriculture.
Interesting. That's very, very interesting, because why I asked this question is because a lot has been happening, and one of the most challenges that we are seeing in Africa is that there's a lot of research, but the research is based on specifics, and that research doesn't go down. And the other thing is that we have not seen a lot of work being done in agriculture, and that's why we have started a campaign of how we can be able to modernize agriculture and make it attractive to young people. What has been your challenge on this journey?
Yes, well, those are very, very important and very real challenges that you just spoke about. How do we get the global scale research really right down to really help smallholder farmers? You know, there are over, I'm very interested in your work with smallholder farmers. You know, all worldwide, not just in Africa, there are over 500 million smallholder farm households farming less than 2 hectares for their farms. So clearly, this is absolutely a tremendous challenge for helping those farmers respond to the challenges of climate change, not just in the future, but now, because climate change is happening now. So what we do through AgMIP, our network, is we work with teams in the country, in all different countries. So in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, AgMIP has had programs in more than 20 countries. And we all work together. It's a completely horizontal network to create the tools of what are the climate change, we call them scenarios, that are projecting what climate change will bring to the farming systems there, crop modelers, livestock modelers, and very important, economic regional economists and their models who put it all together. Because in the end of the day, when we test adaptation packages, those teams in the countries are called A teams, the AgMIP A teams, which stands for adaptation teams. And at the end of the day, we test, so we create with farmer groups and program managers, we create adaptation packages and then test them in our models. And what the models show is how they will affect farmer livelihoods. Will these adaptation packages in response to the changing climate, will it help farmers? What will happen to their incomes? What will happen to poverty levels? And And then we then work with those groups, those stakeholders, to help implement the evidence-based solutions to the changing climate. That's what we do.
Great. Great. And so now let's get to the prize, the World Food Prize. What do you think about this? First of all, again, congratulations on behalf of smallholder farmers across sub-Saharan Africa. We want to congratulate you for getting this prize. What do you feel about this?
I'm so thrilled and honored to receive the World Food Prize this year. But it's not just me, it's really all of our network, over 1,000 researchers in countries all over the world, highlighting the researchers who are working in their countries to help the countries confront the global and regional challenge of climate change. Climate change this year is coming to in agriculture, especially. Agriculture is coming to the forefront of climate change. There's the next conference of the parties is going to be in Egypt this year on the African continent, and food systems and farmers are one of the major themes of the conference. So the prize this year for me is not just highlighting my work, but really highlighting the work of the researchers in AgMIP who work tirelessly to help their countries respond, as well as the climate change issue that needs to be at the table in the global negotiations on climate change.
Brilliant, yes. And I know COP27 is going to be a big thing, especially happening in Africa, seeing the effects that is happening. And right here in Kenya, we actually feeling and seeing the effects of climate change. So what pushed you, Cynthia, what pushed you to come up with a study on climate and agriculture?
Yes, so when I was a farmer, what is the number one thing that farmers experience? What we call climate, but it's what's happening with the rain, what's happening with the temperature, what's happening with droughts, what's happening with heat waves. And it's from my farmer background, climate is just the number one effect on livelihoods and on farming, because it's those first biophysical effects of the climate on the crops. And then, but how do those then translate in, well, did we make money on the cattle that year because we had a good corn crop? Or when we went to market with our vegetables in New York City, were we making enough money, or was the heat slamming the production and the yields? So when I went to study, then I said, I got to learn more about this. So I started back studying, and I started from the very beginning. And I then learned all about the processes, the scientific processes of how the climate affects the crops. And that's what I specialized in when I went back to school. So I wanted to learn more, and that's what I did. So that's how I really got to focus on climate change and agriculture.
Interesting. One of the questions that I'm seeing here is there any findings that you'd like to share with us of some of your research?
Yes, I very much want to share. So for example, in Ghana, so what we do with the adaptation teams is develop, as I said, these adaptation packages. And then we run them through all our linked models, and then see what happens to the incomes and poverty rates. and with, under changing climate conditions. So for example, in Ghana, we found that the climate change would decrease yields 12 to 20% of yield and increase poverty almost 10%. But that was in farming households that were focusing on maize. Then the researcher, the A team there, tested the addition of peanuts or groundnuts into the systems, and they found that groundnuts were not as vulnerable to the climate changes and the heat. And so that's an example of a result which then we can take to, that team then takes to the planners to say, let's see about developing programs that would include groundnut as well as maize. That's an example. In Zimbabwe, the A team, the AgMIP A team, found that adding the legume mucuna into the farming system with the mixed crop and livestock system for those farmers there helped the poorest farmers have the legume, but then they realized that there needed also to be not just growing on the farm, but there needed to be a market for the legume and for mucuna. And so they then, again, you see it's working with not only adaptation packages of what the management changes would be, but it would also be then the farming system with the different groups involved, including the planners, the markets, to all work together to create and implement the solutions.
Good, interesting. Is there a reason why we still have some slow progress in terms of adapting to climate smart agriculture from your research? Is it a government issue? Is it smallholder farmer trainings that are not being implemented in the right way, according to your research, having worked in some of the African countries?
What we have found, and in our latest work, worked in Senegal, Ghana, and Zimbabwe. And what we found was that there was here were some of the reasons that we found to answer your question. One is that there's a kind of disconnect between the national scale program planners and then the different farming regions in each country, which are very different, right? And so what we are really now working on is we're calling it INARA, Integrated National and Regional Assessments and Adaptation, really. And adaptation, because we've got to connect much better. Okay, right here in these regions, we do these kinds of integrated studies, and we say, oh yes, we need to develop a market for mucuna, let's say. But what we also simultaneously have to do is work with the national planners who are developing the programs, and then the financing for those programs, right? And so that we can link up those two scales. And that's really where we're going, because we identified this big gap between those two scales.
You mentioned something interesting about the financing bit. How easy is it to convince philanthropic organizations to support this, and how easy is it? Because we over the few years that we've been working, we've seen a bit of challenge even when it comes to fintech. How easy is this?
Yes, well, I think it's getting better. But I also work on with the United Nations Environment Program, the Adaptation Gap Report. And there's still, even though there is financing is increasing, there's still just a tremendous gap between the financing that's actually needed to respond to climate change, and that we know is needed. Now, I think coming into the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, this move towards saying this is the climate, this has to be the decade of action. The window is closing, that we have to learn how we're both reducing greenhouse gas emissions and developing climate smart agriculture, which includes both reduction of greenhouse gases and resilient farming systems. And I believe that the motivation now is growing for there to be much greater support to scale up. See, what we have to do now is we know we know and we can figure out what needs to be done. But now what we have to do is scale up in the decade of action for climate change solutions. And I believe that's the hope for COP27.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think now that it's in Africa, it is inevitable that we have to actually make sure that this is a reality. I would like to move to the next question and just ask, the effects of climate change are being felt across the world. We are seeing monsoons, we're seeing floods, even in Europe, across Africa, and the challenges are there. We've seen in India and Pakistan as well. Where do you see the state of agriculture in the coming years, let's say in the next 10 years? What needs to be done for any good progress to be made?
What many groups are saying is, and I truly believe this, that the world food system has to be transformed. And it has to be transformed to face the multiple challenges to respond to the multiple challenges that the agricultural system is facing. So we at AgMIP work primarily on climate change. So that is huge. And it affects, as you said, it affects every region, both in low and middle income countries and in the high income countries. All countries have to be working to respond to climate change. But we also have the absolute simultaneous threat really that the food system has to produce health. It has to produce healthy food and food security for all. And there has been a growing malnutrition on both sides, on both the hunger side, but also on the side that's causing obesity and leading to, in many countries now, in not only in developed countries, but also now that is starting in developing countries as well. So the transformations that are needed, and a lot of groups are calling for this food system transformation, is that the focus has to be healthy food for a healthy planet.
Sorry, yes, thank you. And that's really a very important bit, because we have talked about zero hunger for so long, but we had not mentioned the word healthy and safe in the same context. And I think as you have explained, that is one of the things that we can clearly see, that you have not only factored climate change, but you also factored the nutrition bit of it. And that brings me to the next question that is related to that one: is there hope? Will nations ever be able to combat effects of climate change?
Absolutely, yes. You can see I am a pretty optimistic person, but because I have worked in this challenging field of climate change since the 1980s, I can tell you that and also from the interacting through the World Food Prize, I have interacted with dozens of groups, and I want to learn more about the groups that you are working with and see if we can hook up with AgMIP. But you see, there's so many groups all around the world on all different sides of agriculture, like from your group with smallholders, so absolutely critical, but all the way to the biggest agribusinesses. They are really opening their eyes to these challenges as well. So I do have hope, but we must work together absolutely concertedly. We must collaborate more than we've ever collaborated before to scale up to address the challenges that the food system faces.
Yeah, that's really optimistic, and yes, for sure, because we work with quite a number of farmers. We have groups. In total, now the groups are close to 550,000 farmers across Sub-Saharan Africa, and I'm definitely sure that that once we hook up and be able to see how we can be able to showcase what you're doing and get even farmers to adapt to some of the technologies you're building, it will be brilliant. Now, I know that this discussion, you being in agriculture, myself in agriculture, and in the media, we can continue for long. But one of the things that I wanted to ask is, countries have marked World Food Day amidst hunger shocks due to failed rains, recovering from COVID as well, and then we also have the war across Ukraine and Russia. How can nations collaborate to alleviate hunger?
Yes, well, I'm very, very glad you brought up both COVID and conflict, because those are, again, these multiplying threats to the food system. The war in Ukraine has already been raising wheat prices, barley prices, rapeseed, sunflower oil, fertilizer prices have originally went up 40%. So these effects of conflict are very real. COVID affected supply chains, affected labor productivity, then very much had a knock-on effect to food security. And then droughts and floods of increasing extreme events due to climate change. So you can see this concatenating, as you were saying, this just concatenating set of challenges to the food system. But again, through World Food Day, and I was just in preparation for our interview, looking at the FAO website for World Food Day, and there are dozens of countries that are celebrating World Food Day, but not just celebrating it, but really using World Food Day to advance the programs that are actually needed to respond to these threats. So these, our global institutions are, such as FAO, are really working hard to bring the countries together. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that's the group that really brings the countries together to respond to climate change. Adaptation is a very, very key plank in the discussions there, and will be even more strongly embedded in the negotiations this year. So I believe that these processes, while it seems sometimes slow, but the momentum is building that the decade of action really is starting now and really will grow and build in the coming years.
Great, and I really love the positivity and yes, and that you have, and we are sure that definitely as we work together, as we continue partnering together, we can be able to bring this a reality. Now, just a few last questions. One of the things that as we celebrate World Food Day, we're also facing the reality that we have to have improved seed varieties that are to match and help us get better yields despite the challenges in our soil health. What do you think about GMO?
Oh, that's a challenging question. That's a challenging question. The problems with GMO relate to, I believe, public and private conflicts, discord, because previously genetic improvements used to be done much more in public settings, and then they would be then really open source goods. And that's what we need, I believe. I think one of the very main issues with GMO is actually that it's privatized. And so that it's not this public good, which is what genetic material for responding to climate change needs to be. So that's I believe I really believe that's the main issue with the GMO.
Yes, absolutely. And to add on to that as well, the information is not being shared, as you've mentioned, it's not being shared openly. You know, smallholder farmers have a lot of questions, very many myths going around. You know, in our country, in Kenya, GMO has now been, the ban on GMO has actually been lifted. It is a very dicey situation right now. And we are hoping that once the dissemination of this information is broken down, and it can be able, it should be clear. And whether it's a discussion to go for or against. But again, as you've said, it is a very tricky discussion now. Now,
let me just give back one very quick. Also, just say, so there was a fellow of the Columbia University Earth Institute. I'm also associated with Columbia University. And she, after finishing her postdoc fellowship, she and two young colleagues, this is early career scientists, founded an organization to exactly address all the issues that you were just saying about GMO. So I will hook you up with her too after this call, and her new organization, because this idea of education, dissemination, what are things really, what are the challenges? How can we make this work? How can we make these new technologies really work? And as part of the scaling up to respond to climate change, but for the public good. So I'll hook you up with her. Young people are on this, the very challenging issue. I think.
Oh no.
Yeah, I think we might be frozen.
Yeah, shoot.
No, he's coming
I
back.
think he's back. Okay.
Good.
Okay.
The wrap up.
I think
Yes.
Yeah, back. Yes. Yes, we're back now.
Good.
Yes, you had mentioned that there was somebody. You can just take us back to that.
Sure.
Somebody
Just very quickly, one postdoc, a fellow, postdoctoral fellow at Columbia University is that I worked with, and she started an organization with other early career researchers and scientists to address exactly these issues, Noah, that you are raising about the challenges around these new technologies that are many multifaceted, but how can we really work on those so that we can really get the advances out into the world for responding to climate change.
Yeah, I'd be glad to meet, because one of the things that has been a challenge in Africa is that access to this information has not been an easy thing. I have not studied agriculture, but I've just made it my goal to be able to make sure that I can be able to help disseminate, demystify some of this basic information that smallholder farmers need, so that they can be able to improve and help us be food secure, and yeah, so what is your message on this World Food Day, considering that you are also the same week that you're receiving your award? What is your message on this World Food Day?
On this World Food Day, I want to salute all the people around the world who are working on responding to the challenges of climate change, including Noah, your fantastic work with smallholder farmers, so crucially important. As we move into this significant and urgent decade of action on climate change, food needs to be at the table.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and we're hoping to see you in Iowa. I'll be there, I think, on Thursday as well, and then probably if not at COP27, we'll also be there. I want to thank you very much for having given us your time. I know it is pressing, and I thank you very much for the dedication that you're putting and the effort and energy and resources to be able to help support smallholder farmers by your research and your findings as well. We hope that as we continue to interact, we'll be able to find more on what you're doing. We can see areas where we can collaborate together and help bring this. Emily, also, thank you very much for organizing this. I would like just Cynthia to give us one drop. Just say your name and say you're watching A Farmers Media.
I'm Dr. Cynthia Rosenzweig, and I am watching A Farmers Media.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and have a good day. We are quite in the evening here, and we want to thank you very much. I will stop recording that one.